How's it going, everybody? So we're back talking some more of The Boys Season 4 on the channel, Episode 5. We're officially past the midway point for this season, and we are by far not slowing down here. If anything, we're just ramping up further and further. I'm talking even more blood-soaked superhero chaos. I mean, even in this episode, we have some super-powered animal chaos. Before diving into my thoughts about Episode 5, though, share your thoughts down below how you felt about the episode. And if you're a big fan of The Boys, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, because we're going to be talking about every single episode as they drop on Amazon Prime Video. One of the biggest fixtures I love so much about Episode 5, as someone that goes to a lot of different conventions, is the V52 Expo, which is very clearly a play on Hall H San Diego Comic-Con style presentations that we see a lot every single year from the MCU. With all their different trailers and announcements, The Deep goes out there and announces Phase 7 through 19 of their cinematic universe. Firecracker going out there promoting a religious film, kicking off Vaught's Faith Division. And most fun of all, as I think a lot of us have been wondering how we're going to incorporate the Gen V characters into The Boys Season 4, we finally get to see Kate and Sam a little bit throughout Episode 5. Which, as cool as that is, that does make me wonder, where are the rest of the characters? Regardless though, I'm loving how the series is continuing to weave together the plot threads so seamlessly between Gen V and The Boys. With Butcher looking through photos of the facility where the Soup virus is created and formulating a plan, telling the rest of the boys about the virus that kills Soups. Despite the fact it might not be strong enough yet to kill Homelander, they probably are still going to be able to kill Newman with it, although, personally, after what we've seen her survive even just in this season alone, I kind of have my doubts that that would actually kill her either, but I mean, it's possible. Speaking of survival, I'm glad that MM brought it up, although unfortunately we didn't really get an answer in any shape or form about how in the world did Butcher kill Ezekiel. It's one of those burning questions that I can't wait to be answered, or at least I hope is going to be answered. After how much the Starlight Firecracker feud was front and center in the last episode, it doesn't really get as much emphasis in Episode 5, but definitely still is compelling due to Firecracker continuing to egg on Annie on television, telling all of her followers that she's pressing charges and riling them up to the point where they go and trash Starlighter HQ. One storyline I was nervous about going into Episode 5 was the storyline revolving around Huey's father, essentially being brought back to life through the use of Compound V when his mom sneaks it into his IVs. By the way, for all those people that were wondering how in the world that she got it, they even answer it for you in the episode that it fell out of Huey's pocket and she thought she was doing the right thing doing it. The surprising part early on was the fact that Huey's dad seemed perfectly normal. He was alert, talking, having a great time. However, over time, you could definitely see the cracks starting to form and the reasons why we don't give Compound V to full-grown adults. Once Huey's dad starts forgetting that his mom left to go to the restroom, initially I kind of figured that his deterioration would take a little bit longer, but he just rapidly declines all in one episode. Besides that, in terms of surprises, which is something we're going to go back to because there's a lot more storyline, I was not expecting Giancarlo Esposito to be back as Stan Edgar. When the boys decided to go speak to him to try and get assistance tracking down where Newman's keeping the virus, not that I'm going to complain. I mean, I love Giancarlo Esposito and he kills it once again with his brilliant performance in Episode 5. If anything, it's kind of cool that he's assisting the boys in exchange for a pardon. Out of the multitude of different storylines in Episode 5, their storyline by far was my personal favorite, especially from a storytelling perspective, bringing many nuanced layers to the dynamic amongst the team. Newman and Stan Edgar all begrudgingly forced to work together while never fully trusting one another. That's on top of the fact that things just get completely wild once we realize they've been testing Compound V on animals. A lot of different type of animals too. Murderous Compound V juiced up chickens. The most insane of them all, which is something that we knew that was coming because it was teased in the trailers, flying ravenous juiced up sheep that have fangs and tear people and animals apart. In a similar fashion to how much we praised Anthony Starr's performance last week for Homelander, I hope that Simon Pegg gets as much kudos for his portrayal as Huey's dad in Episode 5, as I thought through and through his performance here was phenomenal. Sheer range of emotions, seeing him slowly lose grip of his sanity, the confusion and horror of losing himself. If there's one thing The Boys is always going to do, never faltering, it's create some extremely nasty creative kills, and every single time I think there's no possible way they could top the ones that we've seen previously, they find ways to still do it. I was grossed out and horrified when Huey's dad phases through the walls only to become solid again right in the middle of this guy in his hospital bed with blood and guts spewing about. He's spinning around inside of his body. There's a lot of emotions going on all throughout their sequences. Disgust, horror, heartbreak, because talk about an emotional gut punch when Huey finally gets his dad to snap back to reality. Inevitably, they do have to let him go this time. Though this sequence does pull on my heartstrings, and it does make me sad that Huey's dad is no longer going to be in the show. If there is a silver lining to this experience, at least they are able to each properly say goodbye to him this time before he passes away, unlike before. Shifting back again to the V-52 Expo, there's one part in particular that I'm so surprised sometimes that The Boys gets away with certain things, and I feel like this is going to be something they're going to be seeing a lot circulating on social media, for better or for worse. And that's the announcement of this diversity initiative called Black at It, because there's now 2 black members and 1 unspecified in the 7. It'd be one thing if they just left it at that, but The Boys goes the extra mile and makes it even more ridiculous when they announce there's going to be targeted ads in the products depending on which race you are. White audiences are going to see him hold an IPA, while black fans are going to be seeing him holding peach cognac. I mean, this entire exchange is absolutely insane. Considering Homelander's horrific plot thread last week, it's no shock to anyone that his psyche is continuing to fracture, having me more afraid than ever about the possibilities of what he might do. For a split second, it almost seemed like Homelander was actually being a decent father to Ryan, reflecting on what he's endured growing up, not wanting Ryan to ever have to deal with that as well, only to then slip back into being Homelander and being a horrible influence on his son by having him humiliate Adam, making this woman slap him repeatedly while they watch. Not only that, but he gives this incredibly ominous speech later on about when the time comes stepping up to be more than just celebrities. Before the 7 takes turns beating Cameron to a bloody pulp because they framed him for everything. Well, I shouldn't say them, it was basically Ashley that framed him, as far as for him being the leaker and not A-Train. I am growing increasingly nervous for A-Train, however. It's very clear to this point throughout the episode that Sister Sage is onto him and is trying to test him out in many different ways. Something I thought was kind of a fun little detail they threw in when we learned more about the Compound V sheet. All this began back in season 3 with that hamster that we briefly saw last season. This sequence, though, is where things really start to get intense. Since they only have 1 dose of this virus, everyone essentially other than Butcher wants to inject the dead guy with it, then the sheep will eat it, and then they'll die, and then they can escape with all their lives. Then there's Butcher's crazy ass who just wants to all run out there and hope for the best. For the most part, I do think both plans kind of end up happening, because they do inject the body with the virus and throw it out there for the sheep to eat, but they end up having to run for their lives anyway when the sheep open the barn door. Luckily, they end up dying before any of them are casualties. There are quite a lot of interesting details, though, to ponder about going into next week. Firstly, Newman decides to stop Stan Edgar from going back to being locked up, which definitely has me intrigued going forward. We're going to be getting a lot more Giancarlo Esposito. He's going to be helping out Newman probably at some point. I didn't touch upon a lot of the Frenchie stuff in episode 5 because personally, I didn't think it was all that interesting. I just think it's kind of weird where we're taking Frenchie as a character this season, decides to turn himself into the police. Personally, I just don't feel like they know what to do with Frenchie as a character anymore, so I mean, it is what it is. But most fascinatingly is the fact that Butcher not only chops Samir's leg off, he's holding him captive because he wants him to start making more of that deadly virus. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is there too, though personally, I kind of feel like he's not actually there. I think he's definitely in Butcher's head, but I could be wrong. He's only in a couple scenes. So yeah, pretty wild episode of The Boys this week. Make sure you share your thoughts down below. Like I said, what'd you think of episode 5 of season 4? Did you like the episode? Did you not like the episode? Share any thoughts or theories you have on all the different storylines going on, because we do sure have a lot of stuff to talk about here. And thank you guys, as always, checking out the videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.